tonight calls for the former Tory peer Michelle Moan to be stripped of her title. It comes after a firm linked to the Baroness is ordered to pay back £120 million for breaching an NHS COVID contract. Also on tonight's programme, after 2 years on the run, the moment a rapist is caught and brought to justice. James Clacker faked his death in Scotland before fleeing to Spain. Now he's been jailed for attacking 2 women. Staff at a health board embroiled in a legal dispute are told to use toilets and changing facilities which correspond with their sex at birth.
Coming up in tonight's sport, we preview a big night of European football for 3 Scottish clubs tomorrow. And the world's top golfers are joined by other sporting stars and celebrities at the Dunhill Links.
For an amateur golfer like me to get to even just be on the practice range with some of these guys is amazing.
Hello, I'm Laura Miller. This is Reporting Scotland. A company linked to Michelle Moan, the former Conservative peer, has been ordered by a judge to pay the UK government more than £120 million for breaching a contract to supply surgical gowns during the COVID pandemic. PPE MedPro was sued by the Department of Health and Social Care, which argued the gowns were not sterile. Now, the SNP and Labour say that Baroness Moan should be stripped of her peerage. The Conservatives say they removed the whip from her when the allegations came to light. Rebecca Curran reports.
She's risen from, in her own words, starting from nothing in Glasgow to enjoying a millionaire's lifestyle and having a seat in the House of Lords, all made possible by the soaring success of her lingerie brand and knack for self-promotion. But in recent years, she's been making headlines for her role in a multi-million-pound PPE scandal alongside her husband, Doug Barrowman, something they initially denied.
We should have told the press straight up, straight away, nothing to hide. Everyone knew of an involvement and we should have said to them of our involvement. And we were just trying to not have all the front covers of the pages again for my family, and I was just protecting my family.
PPE MedPro, a company linked to the couple, was awarded lucrative deals to supply 25 million medical gowns during the pandemic. But when they arrived, the UK government wasn't satisfied they were properly sterilised. The gowns couldn't be used, so legal action was launched. At the High Court in London today, a judge ruled the company had breached the contract and ordered PPE MedPro to pay back almost £122 million by the middle of this month.
I, Michelle, Baroness Moan.
It's a substantial fall from grace since David Cameron made Baroness Moan a peer in 2015. After the scandal emerged, she was stripped of the Conservative whip and is currently on leave from the House of Lords. Now there are calls for her to be removed altogether.
The main thing for the public here is what's the consequences? Is it OK that Michelle Moan continues to sit in the House of Lords? Is it OK that she continues to make laws over all of our lives? And I think the overwhelming view from the Scottish public will be no.
Doug Barrowman has described today's judgment as a whitewash of the facts, while Michelle Moan said it's nothing less than an establishment win for the government in a case that was too big to lose.
We are going to chase down any company that have profited inappropriately from COVID. PPE MedPro are one such company. I welcome the court judgment today that means they need to repay £122 million back to the Exchequer. That's money coming back to the taxpayer that will rightly be spent on public services.
Michelle Moan has said she's looking forward to putting the scandal behind her. It remains unclear how MedPro will pay the fee, with the company appointing administrators yesterday. Meanwhile, a separate investigation into PPE MedPro by the National Crime Agency is ongoing, examining suspected criminal offences linked to the PPE contracts. The couple deny any wrongdoing. Rebecca Curran, Reporting Scotland.
It is a shocking story which has taken 6 years to finally reach its conclusion. This is James Clacker, a double rapist who faked his own death and fled Scotland for Spain, finally tracked down and arrested by Spanish police in the most dramatic of circumstances. Today, he was jailed for 8 years, with a judge telling him the effects of his crimes were devastating, leaving his victims broken. Katrina Renton has the story.
James Clacker was on this beach in the town of Nerja on the Costa del Sol. He was upside down on gym equipment when Spanish police caught up with him.
La Guardia Civil detiene en Nerja a un fugitivo.
Clacker, who was involved in running a gym, was last seen in Airdrie when he went missing in May 2022. He had been accused of raping 2 women. The court heard he'd been a reservist in the parachute regiment and used his survival skills while on the run. He told police he'd survived on berries and puddle water before he left the UK. Today, he was sentenced.
And you were eventually traced and returned to Scotland. And however impressive your work record might be and your service in the Reserve Armed Forces, your flight abroad might be seen as a cowardly action. When you lost control of the consequences of your own conduct, you ran away.
It was in this rural area where his escape began. James Clacker's car was later found at a car park here at Loch Long in Arachar in Argyll and Bute. There was a note suggesting he was planning to take his own life, but instead he went on the run and then went to start a new life in Spain. The court heard prior to leaving Scotland he had withdrawn £6,000 and €220 from a bank account, and he sent apparently concerning messages to friends before his father reported him missing. But his web of lies unravelled.
The message I think that it sends out is that I would be reassured that the police don't down tools with these investigations. We are constantly looking at intelligence and other avenues to find criminals who are wanted for serious sexual offences.
Clacker finally faced justice. The court heard he raped 2 women he met on dating apps, Tinder and Bumble. Both women were attacked in their own homes in Ayrshire and in Glasgow, one in 2019, one in 2020. Lord Cuby said the effects of his actions were devastating. Clacker was sentenced to 8 years in prison and then a further 2 years on licence once he's released. Katrina Renton reporting Scotland.
NHS Fife has said its staff should now use facilities that correspond with their sex at birth rather than their gender identity. The Scottish Government has written to all health boards instructing them to comply with the law. NHS Fife has been at the centre of a high-profile employment tribunal where its gender policy has been challenged. Maura Kinniburgh reports.
Nurse Sandy Peggy took NHS Fife to an employment tribunal complaining that transgender Dr Beth Upton, who was born male, was allowed to use a women's changing room at Victoria Hospital in Kirkcaldy. That tribunal is scheduled to deliberate later this month. Earlier this year, the UK Supreme Court ruled that sex was defined as biological. The Equality and Human Rights Commission warned the Health Board it must comply with the law. This morning, NHS Fife stated its interim position where a facility is provided separately for men and women, it should be used by people whose sex at birth corresponds with the facility. It added no one should be put in a position where they don't have access to suitable facilities that respect and protect their dignity and privacy. Some campaigners have welcomed this policy change.
This news is really long overdue. It's extraordinary that we've had to have this long, expensive employment tribunal, hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money gone to establish what we all knew and what NHS Fife now recognises, which is that single sex means single sex. Men do not have the right to come into women-only spaces, even if those men identify as women, because women have rights, and those rights include single-sex spaces.
But opponents argue it's wrong.
This feels like a massive step backwards, and yeah, I mostly feel for the people working across the NHS who just want to look after people, doctors, nurses, other NHS staff, who are suddenly going to find their workplace a much more difficult environment than they did before this change.
The Scottish Government's written to all health boards stressing they must comply with the law. An interim version of its trans policy states staff can no longer use facilities they feel most comfortable with. Maura Kinniburgh, reporting Scotland.
A CalMac ferry serving Arran that's been out of action for 20 months for repairs costing more than £12 million has returned to service. The MV Caledonian is one of the main vessels serving the Arran route and has resumed sailing from Ardrossan this evening. From there, Suzanne Allen reports.
Well, this is really good news if you live in Ardrossan or on Arran, as they have been without a reliable, regular ferry service for the past year. There have been sailings to Arran, but they've been going from Troon on the new Glensannox, which came into service earlier this year, but it's too big to dock here at Ardrossan. So the MV Caledonian Isles was back tonight. She made her first crossing at 5 p.m. and earlier I spoke to the CalMac chief executive on board the ship and he told me of his relief.
I'm looking forward to getting to the point where she's back into service, and in particular that means we're back up to full strength in the fleet, which we haven't been for a long time, and island communities have been paying the price for that.
The Caledonian Isles has been out of service for 20 months and has cost more than £12 million to repair. Now, the ship's long absence has caused major economic difficulties. That's according to the Save Ardrossan Harbour Group, who say restaurants and shops have been much quieter, and they're hoping that the redevelopment of the harbour will go ahead.
It's been depressing seeing the harbour empty after nearly 200 years of the harbour having ships coming in and out, and it's been reduced to nothing. So it's been quite difficult, and looking forward to the future. If this purchase goes through and the work can then be carried out, it shows there'll be a prosperous future for Ardrossan, but that work must be carried out, and it seems that the only way to do so is for the harbour to be transferred into public ownership.
So negotiations are underway to redevelop the harbour, and that would mean that much bigger ships would be able to berth here safely.
Suzanne Allen reporting there. Now to some of the day's other stories. And detectives investigating the death of Graham Wright have charged a 53-year-old man in connection with attempting to defeat the ends of justice. He's due to appear at Glasgow Sheriff Court tomorrow. Mr Wright was reported missing on the 25th of August, and human remains belonging to the 38-year-old were discovered near Loch Lomond on the 13th of September. Police say inquiries are ongoing. A lorry driver has died in a crash in Glasgow that saw his load of timber fall down from a motorway bridge onto the M8 below. Police Scotland is investigating whether the 61-year-old man took ill at the wheel during the incident yesterday. The court has banned a so-called African tribe from moving back to private land they had already been evicted from in the borders. The three people, who call themselves the Kingdom of Kabbalah, were not at the hearing at Selkirk Sheriff Court this morning. The court has already granted an eviction order for the council-owned land they are currently camping on in Jedburgh. The group has said it doesn't recognise the powers of the courts and have so far refused to engage with the authorities. Now, just as you might be thinking about turning the heating on again, maybe you already have, the price of electricity and gas is going up again from today. The rise means a typical household will pay £35 a year more. Energy prices aren't as high as they were 3 years ago, but for many on tight budgets, this latest rise is a real worry. Our news correspondent Jamie McIver has more.
Susie volunteers at a food bank. She lives on universal credit and her energy bills are a big worry. Her own serious health conditions mean she isn't able to work. They also mean she needs heating in the winter and air conditioning in the summer.
The way that I use my energy isn't like what most people use. Unfortunately, during the summer, because of my health, I can't withstand the heat, so I've got an actual industrial air conditioning unit in my bedroom. It's the only way to actually give me any sort of respite.
At the food bank, she sees others on low incomes struggle with energy bills and debts too. The latest increase worries her.
They're talking about proper whole dinners that they've had as like super noodles. You know, back when I was younger, I would have seen that as a snack. You know, some people are now looking at proper dinners as being super noodles, beans and toast. This is what people are eating on a daily basis because their bills are getting too expensive.
To work out what the latest rise means for you, add £2 onto every £100 you currently spend on energy. Debt is a widespread issue across Britain. £4.4 billion is owed to energy firms.
Energy debt is the most common form of household debt for our clients. 2 in 5 Step Change Scotland clients are in energy arrears. And in the first half of 2025 so far, our clients had an average of £3,500 in energy debt. That's 42% higher than last year.
There's some financial support. Pensioners in Scotland will get up to £305 to help with energy bills. And those on certain benefits, including universal credit, may get a £150 discount. Long term, the UK government hopes to bring down energy bills by a variety of means. But for those on low incomes like Susie, the cost of staying warm now is a big worry. Jamie McIver, reporting Scotland.
Now, you might be aware that many councils across Scotland are looking into introducing a visitor levy or tourist tax. Well, from today, Edinburgh has become the first to actually put it in place. Bookings from the 24th of July next year and beyond will have 5% charge added to accommodation, such as hotels and short-term lets. The council says it will raise millions of pounds, but there's concern from some businesses it will put people off coming. Joanne Macaulay reports.
Edinburgh now attracts around 4 million visitors a year. This has an impact on the city, and the council says charging them a tax for staying here is a way of generating much needed income, which is welcomed by many in Edinburgh.
I think if the visitor levies pay is used appropriately, then I think everybody will benefit from that. That, the streets will be cleaner, the place will look better, there'll be better infrastructure. So as long as it's used appropriately, then I think everybody will see the benefit of that.
But Anna Morris, who runs a small short-term lets business, says implementing the tax is an extra burden for small businesses.
If it had been a system where, say, we'd gave a QR code to guests and they paid it separately and they took the money then went to the council, that would have been so much simpler. But as I say, the burden's really on the small businesses to effectively figure out how to implement and roll it out and then collect it.
Edinburgh is following other popular destinations like Barcelona, Amsterdam and Paris by introducing a tourist tax. Glasgow and Aberdeen have agreed to do the same. Meanwhile, other councils across Scotland are considering it as an option, while some have rejected the idea.
Last week, Argyll and Bute joined Orkney, Shetland, South Ayrshire and the Western Isles in pausing plans for this type of tourist tax. But experts say they could consider a different type of charge.
They might decide instead to have a daily visitor rate, like many other places have, because that might be more appropriate.
We asked some visitors to Edinburgh what they think about the tourist tax.
I don't think it would stop us from coming back. No.
Yeah. We'd probably look to stay outside of Edinburgh and maybe travel in rather than staying here itself.
I think it's important to protect the city.
Other councils who are consulting on the matter will be taking a keen interest in how the capital gets on. Joanne Macaulay reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
OK, let's get tonight's sport now with Sheila and a bumper week of European football action.
It sure is, Laura. We'll look ahead to all those games and we've got a wee golf treat for you coming up. Hello there. Yes, 3 huge games in Europe tomorrow night. Let's start first with Rangers, who are in Austria, looking to build on their first Premiership win of the season when they take on Sturm Graz in the Europa League. Well, our reporter Paul Barnes is there for us. And Paul, you've just been hearing from the Rangers head coach.
Yes, the Rangers head coach Russell Martin has been conducting his pre-match media conference here in the last hour or so, and it was dominated yet again by questions about his own position and this seemingly unrelenting scrutiny that he's facing from some Rangers supporters following a disappointing start to the season. Well, that criticism took on another twist at the weekend, with some Rangers fans at Livingston calling for the Rangers head coach to be sacked just seconds after celebrating the euphoria of scoring a last-minute winner at Amon Vale, their first Premiership victory of the season. A very unusual situation indeed, and this is what Russell Martin had to say about it.
I just wish at that point they can enjoy their team winning, and the lads can enjoy it a bit more rather than having that energy towards me. Yeah, and the only other thing I find sad is when and I see the kids standing next to their dads and stuff and sticking their fingers up at me and swearing at me, and I don't feel particularly sad about it for me. I just feel like for the cycle to go on and to understand. And like, I'm here, we've made mistakes, there's been some tough moments, but we're giving everything we've got to improve the club.
Well, Martin will be hoping that Rangers' improvement continues here tomorrow against the Austrian champions Sturm Graz. The squad arrived here in the last hour or so and had a quick look around the pitch, and they'll be hoping to put their first Europa League points on the board after a disappointing opening defeat at home to Genk last week.
Thanks, Paul. A big night in Austria ahead tomorrow. Now, Kasper Schmeichel says the Celtic players need fans to get behind them amid plans for a silent protest in their first home Europa League match tomorrow night. Brendan Rodgers' side take on Braga in Glasgow, but the latest in a line of fan demonstrations about how the club is being run is expected to take place for the first 29 minutes of the match.
There is nothing more motivating than coming out at this pitch here, full stadium with that noise. So, like I say, I completely understand the frustration. I completely understand the fans wanting to voice their opinions. But we need you. You know, that would be my message. We need you. You know, and it's up to us, of course, to go and produce and to get that noise and get that energy in the stadium. But that's one of our biggest strengths is the support that we have.
Now, Aberdeen boss Jimmy Tilleen hasn't had his troubles to seek in recent weeks, but he says they must believe they can turn their fortunes around, starting tomorrow in the Conference League. The Dons host Shakhtar Donetsk in their opening encounter as they try to put their poor league form behind them.
We try to give everything we can, and we also believe we can get a good result tomorrow if we do our things in a really good way. We know Shakhtar is a good team, they're an experienced team, but we also have to believe in ourselves when you go into a football game. And that's the thing with football, is football. And if you do the good performance and we get the things right, we have a good chance to do something good tomorrow.
Melanie Woods has won her second medal of the World Para-Athletics Championships in New Delhi. After clinching bronze in the T54 classification for the 800 metres, the Glasgow athlete was again third in the 1500 metre final. The race was won in a championship record by Catherine De Bruyne of Switzerland. And finally, they're some of the biggest names in sport, music and cinema, but even they get excited and a little bit starstruck playing around with some of the world's most famous golfers at one of the more unique tournaments. The also slightly starstruck Louise Cowie went along too.
Swapping centre court for the old course. Tennis legend Andy Murray is among the famous faces taking part in this year's Alfred Dunhill Links Championship. The Pro-Am golf event, which is staged across St Andrews, Carnoustie and Kings Barnes, is a big draw for stars of other sports.
I mean, I'm not planning on becoming a golf professional or anything, or trying to do anything like that, but I love it. It's pretty unique, really. I don't think you've got anything like this in other sports. So yeah, for an amateur golfer like me to get to even just be on the practice range with some of these guys is amazing, but to get to play a round of golf with them at some of the best golf courses in the world is pretty cool.
How's it going so far?
Not bad, not bad. We played yesterday. I played with Sir Andy yesterday, had a great day, and we're going out again today. Yeah, we play a lot of golf together. Good guy, and we're just trying to groove our swings. Unemployed athletes trying to find golf swings.
Former jockey AP McCoy is a regular at the championship, but doesn't fancy himself as a favourite.
I always say you can blame the horse. You can't blame the golf clubs. You can't blame Callaway golf clubs that John Ram plays with, can you? So don't do him any harm. Unfortunately, I'm just not that capable.
Ronan Keating made his money from music, but the home of golf is where his heart is.
It's just magic to be here. I've been lucky enough to play in this tournament 13, 14 times, and it just never gets old. It's just incredible. And when the handicap system in golf is a wonderful thing, because you can play with the best of the best in the world and still, you know, enjoy it and not feel like a total idiot.
This unique event, which brings an extra slice of glitz to golf, gets underway tomorrow. Louise Cowie reporting Scotland, St Andrews.
Yeah, I think Louise is having a rare old time there.
Absolutely.
Chasing round all the celebrities.
I know. Andy Murray, a bit of a golf superfan there as well.
He looked quite giddy, didn't he? Quite
I know.
excited.
Watch out for him on the tee then, eh? OK, thanks, Sheila. Christopher, weather not looking so good, though, perhaps, for the golfers at St Andrews.
Afraid not. In fact, it's turning increasingly stormy as we head through towards the end of the week. This is the early warning to put the garden furniture and trampolines away. It's going to turn wild.
Noted.
Thank you very much indeed. Good evening to you. It was a pretty wet start to the day today, but the rain eased off, although it remained cloudy. A bit of brightness on the Murray coast lifted temperatures to 20 degrees. Over the next few days, waving weather fronts bringing pulses of heavy and persistent rain, and over my shoulder there, the first named storm of the season coming our way Friday. Before we get there, tonight we have a Met Office yellow warning covering much of the west of the country for heavy rain because it's going to be a cloudy and a wet picture as we head overnight, with those rain totals just mounting up, leading to some issues with localised flooding. It's a mild night, temperatures here in towns and cities around 13 or 14 Celsius. But a cloudy and a damp start to the day tomorrow, with pulses of wet weather coming and going. Like today, the best chance of any brighter weather on the Murray coast, but in short supply really. Temperatures similar to today's value, 16 or 17 Celsius, and then into tomorrow evening, that rain turning heavy and persistent where we have that warning area in the west. Again, some localised issues with flooding. And then we need to think about that storm. So we've had 2 hurricanes out in the western Atlantic. Let me show you that on the pressure sequence. There they are. They're not coming our way, but the remnants of one of them will come across the Atlantic, scooped up by the jet stream, and that will rapidly deepen it into what is being called Storm Amy, coming our way Friday night. But as well as those high winds, some heavy rain as well. So another Met Office yellow warning over an extended area. So first thing on Friday, actually, it's not too bad. It's largely dry, bit of brightness, definitely the calm before the storm. And then the cloud builds, the winds strengthen, and the rain arrives, turning increasingly heavy and persistent. That is the first signs of Storm Amy. It will bring a bout of widespread gale or severe gale force gusts, maybe storm force at times. With trees in full leaf, we could see some trees and branches come down, certainly transport disruption, power cuts maybe, flying debris as well. And you can see as we head overnight through the early hours of Saturday morning, a swathe of extremely strong winds. So a very unsettled stormy spell of weather, which is set to last throughout Saturday as well. And that heavy rain still with us as well. So stay up to date with the latest, because those warning areas may change and they may also be upgraded as well. That's the forecast for now.
Weekend indoors, I think.
Yes.
Thanks, Christopher. Now tonight's main news again. There are calls for the former Tory peer Baroness Moan to be stripped of her title. It comes after a firm linked to her is ordered to pay back £120 million for breaching an NHS COVID contract. A man who faked his death in Scotland before fleeing to Spain has been jailed for 8 years for attacking 2 women. And staff at a health board embroiled in a legal dispute are told to use toilets and changing facilities which correspond with their sex at birth. And that is Reporting Scotland. Anne McAlpine will have your late news around 10:30 tonight. Until then, from everyone on the team, enjoy your evening. Good night.